If you control the vriya by remaining a brahmachari without emission of even a single drop of sexual energy for 12 years, mind and prana are controlled by themselves. In essence, these are all transmutative practices. This is all the practice of inner alchemy. Once you have cultivated a certain amount of nervous energy, sexual energy, shakti, whatever you want to call it, it has to have motility. You have to move it up through the nerve plexuses and the ganglions there, which store this energy. It's a more scientific lens that you can understand this at. Then you will be better able to forego all the sexual tension, frustration, and energy leakages in your everyday life. So let's talk about pranayama for awakening Kundalini, right? When you practice the following, concentrate on the Muladhara chakra. This is the root chakra. This is your pelvic floor at the base of the spinal column. It is a triangular form, and which is the seat of Kundalini Shakti. Close the right nostril with your fighting thumb. Inhale through the left nostril till you count 3 ohms slowly. You do this mentally, right? So you close, and you're breathing through this nostril. Now, Nadi Shumna, I believe it's called, is a purification of kind of the yin and yang parts of you. You can call this masculine and feminine. They call this Ida Pingala, right? And it's essentially, there's a scientific background to this. This isn't just woo-woo. This is the element of your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, right? The fight, the flight, the rest and digest. You alternate which nostril you breathe through throughout the day. And the way you can know this right now is I just like to place this index finger on my forehead, kind of in the middle brow where the third eye would be. And I'm just closing, so you can't see. I'm just closing one nostril with the thumb here. So this channel is open right now. And then when I switch over here, this side, so you can see the other side is closed, right? And it just shows you which branch is kind of open at the moment and what state you're in. When you're in meditation, both of these channels should open, so either Pingala and Shushimna, which is the central channel, the most important nadi, opens. And this way you have a clean flow of energy from the root all the way up to the crown. So imagine that you are drawing prana in with the atmospheric air. So you're drawing in prana, okay? I'm drawing in prana. Then close the left nostril with your little finger and ring finger. I just use the, when I'm here, I use the middle. You can use the others, but as long as, again, you're closing the channel. Then retain the breath for 12 ohms. So this is Kumhaka. When you're retaining your breath, you're sending the current down the spine straight into the triangular lotus, the Muladhara chakra. So I still have a little bit of research to do on breath retention and CO2 buildup. My own personal experience is that it's actually a very interesting sensation when you are doing breath retention and there's no air in the body and CO2 is starting to build up into your blood. And it gets you better at CO2 tolerance. So I only really understand the surface level and the scientific lens, but this is breath retention. Now, we have here, imagine that the nerve is striking against the lotus and awakening Kundalini. Then slowly exhale through the right nostril, so you've changed, counting 6 ohms. And Om is the cosmic sound, the sound of God. Some people like to call it the sound of the universe. And it just gives your mind intention. The breath may be enough, but the reason you have, the Om is like what would you say, asana for the mind. It's a posture for the mind. So when you're repeating Om, your posture, your focus, your intention is on God. Repeat the process from the right nostril as stated above, using the same units and having the same imagination and feeling. This pranayama will awaken Kundalini very quickly. Do it 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening. Increase the number and the time gradually and cautiously according to your strength and capacity. So There are stories of individuals who've gone to gurus and who've awakened Kundalini violently and preemptively. This is a very, very powerful energy, and it can leave people in states where they're awake for days at a time. I firmly believe that I had this kind of experience when I was 23, and it was so bad that it put me in a mental hospital for 28 days. I didn't do it this way. It was drug-induced. In my personal opinion, though, the sensations that are consistent with a Kundalini awakening are the ones that I experienced in my, they called it a psychosis, a first episode psychosis. But this pillar of energy moving through the base all the way up through the spine, lucid presence to the point where, I mean, it's very, very difficult to describe, because it's almost ineffable. There are no real points of references you have there other than this surge of untapped, unbounded energy. So Kundalini will be awakened quickly if the degree of concentration is intense and if pranayama is practiced regularly. Yeah. So pranayama during meditation, if you do concentrate and meditate, do pranayama, pranayama comes by itself. So when you're meditating, you might not consciously need to do pranayama, because hopefully your objective or your point of concentration is prana, is the breath. The breath itself becomes slower and slower to the point where you might not even discern that you are breathing when you get into states of meditation beyond 20 minutes, and the breath is almost imperceptible. I drew a diagram once on my board to kind of show and dictate how yoga happens, which is unification of mind and body. So the idea is you have an inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. When you're starting to get deeper and deeper into meditation, it starts to turn from this kind of like rectangle, like this, inhale, exhale, into a circle, meaning there is no imperceptible point between the inhalation and exhalation. It becomes unified. So your breath becomes unified and you enter yoga. When you unify the breath, unify the mind, unify the body. So in Greek, call this pneuma, breath, unifies the psyche, the mind, which unifies the soma, the body. And that's how you enter into higher states of samadhi. In a non-yogic lens, you get spiritual insights. You might get visions. You might start to see, you start to release DMT in some of these states, and it's, again, you go into the ineffable, which is indescribable. Any of you that have ever taken things like psilocybin or DMT or any psychedelic, it's like trying to compare or describe those kind of states to somebody who's never done it before. They have no reference point for it, so it's almost impossible to try and pass out to them. We will practice this pranayama daily unconsciously, meaning we have no focus or intention on the breath. When you are reading a sensational storybook, or when you are solving a mathematical problem, your mind is really very much absorbed in the subject matter. If you closely watch the breath on these occasions, it goes into these very slow states. Some of the reference points here. Pranayama comes by itself essentially when you get present, when you get deeply ensconced in, a good movie, or maybe you're playing chess, or maybe you're creating a piece of music, maybe you're painting some art. Pranayama happens, yoga happens. It's what you call getting into flow states, deep work states, where it feels like your mind and your body become one thing. Even when I'm writing sometimes, or I'm creating something, or writing tweets, or doing these videos, right? When I'm speaking and interfacing all this equipment, it feels like the camera, me, what I'm saying, my mind, my body becomes one unified thing. So I enter a state of yoga. And my breath right now, it's fairly there, but more palpably, more tangibly, more grounded in some of the aforementioned things there. It is obvious from these examples that when the mind is deeply concentrated on any subject, the respiration slows down or it stops altogether. Pranayama is being done automatically. Mind and prana are deeply connected. So, many, one of the most, and again, I know it's an existential problem. A lot of you guys, you send me messages, Joseph, I just can't stop this mind. I can't stop it. Prana. Prana is the thing that influences your mind. If you control breath, you control the mind. So if you can start slowing the breath down and, like I say, change it from this rectacular inhale, exhale, this kind of really robotic thing, and just let it go into that kind of unified, yogic, no beginning, no end. You unify the breath, you unify this mind. And it's amazing what you can do in these kind of states. So if you turn your attention to watch the breath on occasions, it will regain its normal state. Pranayama comes by itself to those who are deeply absorbed in doing japa, jnana, brahma, vishara, inquiry of Atman, inquiry of your soul, inquiry of the witness, inquiry of the observer. Prana, mind, and vidya, which is sexual energy, are under one connection. If you can control the mind through prana and vidya, if you can control the mind, prana and vidya are controlled by themselves. I mean, I've made the point that if you control prana, you control the mind and you control vidya, or you control shakti. So vidya being sexual energy. If you can control prana, mind and vidya are controlled. So they said it here. If you can control prana, mind and vidya are controlled by themselves. If you control the vidya by remaining a brahmachari without emission of even a single drop of sexual energy for 12 years, mind and prana are controlled by themselves. Just as there is a connection between wind and fire and light, so there will be a connection between prana and mind. Wind fans the fire, prana fans the mind. If there is no wind, fire, or light to get steady, Hatha yogins approach Brahman by controlling prana. Raja yogins approach Brahman by controlling the mind. So many different paths to God, and here is just a testament to how interrelated these particular elements are, and why I fervently have made the point and will continue to make the point: stop calling this SR. Stop calling it being on SR. You're not. You're an alchemist. You're an alchemist. What you're doing here is you're conducting different elements in the body to give you different results and hopefully unify with your deity, right? With the divine, with cosmos, with universe, with God, whatever you want to call it. That's what you're doing here. And, when you get sensitive towards the subtle energies that are moving throughout the nerve plexus and the ganglions and the solar plexus and the heart plexus, then you start to develop siddhis, which are the term siddhis in a Western lexicon is actually superpowers, right? And if you want to learn about some of the siddhis that people can develop, Dean Radin has got a really interesting book called Superpowers. There's also a tremendous book called Autobiography of a Yogi, which all of you should have read already, where Paramahansa Yogananda goes through many different gurus and sadhus and individuals who have done this, developed themselves through brahmacharya, through pranayama, and pranayama, by the way, is breath control, and they develop siddhis, they develop superpowers, and he talks about them as nonchalantly as going to the supermarket and picking up bread, right? And it's that air, like I've never seen somebody with siddhis, but the brazenness in which he talks about some of these things is, it requires a little bit of pause. It requires you to suspend some of your beliefs. And you can be skeptical, that's completely fine. But I've always maintained the fact that, as per teachings of Vadim Zeeland, Neville Goddard, Maxwell Maltz, that your perspective on life typically dictates how your reality pans out. Meaning, if you hold your mind and your heart from the perspective of skepticism, you will always get skeptical outcomes. Does it benefit you being a skeptic? I've always said. I used to be very skeptical. I used to be an atheist. I used to say, don't talk to me about that God and Jesus nonsense. I don't want to hear about it, right? Where's the proof? I was the biggest skeptic, and I was the most miserable man I've ever been when I was a skeptic, when I was a scientist, when I had to see the data. But as soon as I started opening up my mind and my heart to spirit, God, cosmos, serendipity, synchronicity, started to happen in my life. And I'm much, much happier. So change the stories you tell yourself. Ask yourself the question, has being a skeptic benefited you in your life? If the answer is no, maybe you should change the rules in which you are living your life. Something to meditate on. Not theories, facts. Speak soon.